Today I am with Chris, who recently got microacquired for 5 figures. Chris, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Well, hey, congrats on the acquisition to start. And for people that may not know you that are listening, do you want to just give a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I've been a web developer for like 14 years, something like that. I've been an independent consultant for a long part of that. And yeah, recently or so, just before COVID, I started a startup called Meeting Place or a SaaS. And yeah, that's the one that got sold earlier this year. So about 2 years later.
Nice, right on, man. What did Meeting Place do?
So it was a meetup alternative, and it was because I was running a meetup here in Indianapolis, and this was when Meetup was owned by WeWork, and they were going to do something very strange. They were going to try to charge free users $2 to RSVP to free events. They were calling it a pricing test. It was clearly a way to try to get more money out of users,
Oh
and
no.
I was like, "That's lame." So I started an alternative. Yeah, and launched it in about a couple weeks, under a month anyway, and yeah, got a bunch of users and
I
went from there.
love that. You saw another product that was successful, and then you saw them doing something that might have made it less successful, and then you put your own spin on it. That's genius, right on, man. How long did it take you to build? Did you say 6 months?
6 weeks. Yeah.
6 weeks?
Yeah, the initial version was out in under a month, because I wanted to use it for my meetup, right? So it was out really fast, and then so that was end of 2019, and then I worked on it at the beginning of 2020, and then COVID hit, and all meetups sort of stopped, and
Yeah.
so that really took the wind out of my sails. But yeah, it was fully operational in probably a couple of months, really. But the first version under a month. Yeah.
I love how you wrote it out though. And you waited until, the world started to heal in a
Right.
sense. I remember right when COVID hit, we had a lot of really large event app and they would connect their revenue metrics and it would I'm for those listening at my hand showing like a little like line and just a big drop as if like the CEO was indicted for fraud if it was a
Oh,
public company. It was rough for a lot of event-based companies. So glad to hear you weathered the storm. Tell me about your experience on MicroChoir. So first, I'd love to know how'd you hear about it, and what made you decide to list Meeting Place.
yeah. So I've been in the sort of micro SaaS space for a while. Like I've had other small projects, and I knew about some of the like the larger like firms that do brokerage firms and things like that. But this project was always sort of a side project. Like I throughout most of the time I was consulting. I actually wasn't doing this full time, and so it didn't really make sense to sell on one of the big like through one of the big firms. So I think I heard about you through MicroConf, but like heard people there. And yeah, I do a podcast with someone else who does like SaaS kind of stuff, and he was like, "You should just try to list it," because at the time I kind of run out of steam on it. It's really I was trying to do it as a solo dev, but it's the type of business that I think makes more sense to like build a team for or raise money for because it was a freemium app, and so there were a lot of free groups, and to really get the word out, I would have had to spend a lot more time doing things that I just didn't have time to do. Anyway, so he said you should just try to listen on MicroChoir, and so I did. I tell the story like your onboarding is really great because I was just like filling out my profile, and I was like, we'll see where this goes, and then I was like, do you want to list it? And I said sure, and then I started getting inbound requests the next day. So plus one for your onboarding. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. And a shout out to MicroComp as well. I'm a big fan of that conference, but never been. I guess my second question would be in terms of buyers start reaching out. How did you find the right buyer? How did you know he or she was a good match? And how did you kind of weed out maybe some of the ones that may have been tire kickers or you knew might be wasting your time?
Yeah, so I tried to anyone who responded, I tried to engage like they were fully invested. But that yeah, I did find a lot of them like they would reach out once, I'd give them some information, and I just wouldn't hear back. Which is okay, I guess, right? If you're reaching out to a bunch of people. But I did get so I got maybe 15 requests in like under a week, and then I got two really serious people. Talked to them on Zoom, and so I got offers from both of them, and one of them was more like he was a developer like me. He wanted to pay all cash. He was like excited about the product, and then the other one was a little it seemed like he was building a portfolio of things. He wanted some more like ongoing support from me. And like I mentioned, so I just started a master's program as well. So I had a master's program at consulting, and so I kind of just wanted to be done with it, right? So he wanted to pay out over time, and it was actually more money, but over a longer period of time. So those were kind of my two options. Yeah, so I chose the all cash up front.
Nice. I like that. I always recommend cash up front because if you do, and seller financing can work out really well in a lot of scenarios, but if you have an all cash offer, it just reduces so much risk on your end because you're not chasing the other person down for either monthly payments or for whatever you agree to.
Yeah.
I recently was in a situation where I had I haven't announced this yet, but we bought a Shopify SaaS for like 60K like a year ago, and we had two offers. One was all cash and one had seller financing. The all cash offer was a little lower, and I without a doubt I was like, let's go with that. It's cleaner, you can walk away faster. Obviously I'm still in touch with the buyer, but good move there. And then I guess my next question would be was how did you handle due diligence? Can you walk me through just like the steps or maybe some learnings from going through that process?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it was a good like first sale. It was my first time selling something, and the buyer's first time buying something, and so we kind of like didn't really know what we were doing. So I think MicroChoir is great here. You have like a list of things that you should ask for in due diligence. I think so. He asked for several things, like screenshots of different things, screenshots of like Stripe, and a quick code walkthrough. I think just to make sure it wasn't like all spaghetti, and then financials and stuff like that. Um, but it went pretty quickly because like it wasn't like I was selling a business with a bunch of employees, and so like there were small fixed set of things he wanted to see, and yeah, that's how due diligence went for us. It was pretty painless, really.
Nice. And then in terms of did you use escrow?
No, we didn't. We sort of did our own escrow kind of on accident because so he was in Canada and I'm in the US, and there was like a fixed or there was like a cap on the amount he could send per day, like wire per day to the US without doing something fancy or
Mm,
incurring more fees or whatever. And so he would send me it some one day, and I did like one account transfer, and he sent some more, and I did another account transfer. So it's kind of like we did our own escrow, and we kind of were just acting in good faith. Like part of it, it's not like $1 million sale or anything like that, and so we didn't feel like we needed like a real escrow, I guess, which probably goes right a lot of the time. And when I don't recommend it because if it goes wrong, then it really goes wrong. But it went right for us, so yeah,
that's awesome. In a way, you were kind of staggering. I
yeah,
mean, rather than just, the buyer wiring funds and then, then you're kind of stuck. So I always recommend an escrow service, but it sounds like it worked out well for you. So nice job on that. I guess my next question would be so you transferred or no, excuse me, can you walk me through how did you transfer the assets? How long did it take? Any sort of tips for that? Did you guys have like a list of all the assets that you were going to move over one at a time?
yep. Yeah, so as part of the due diligence, he wanted basically a list of every account or every technology, every account, like where everything was running, so that if he chose to buy it, we basically had an exact list of what we had to transfer. So yeah, that list was already made, and then we basically set up a series of meetings over a few days where he and I just sat down and transferred everything. Most of it was okay. Some of the harder things were like two-factor off was tied to my personal cell phone, so we
Mm,
had to like do the dance where like I turned two-factor off or I switched it to his phone, and then like he read the code to me and stuff. So there's sort of a dance around some of the accounts. And then the other thing that was tricky was AWS. I have like a lot of projects in AWS, and you can't just transfer a bucket to someone else. So we had to like download all of the assets and re-upload them, and it's only like one step, but it has a potential to take down the app while you do that. So if I was going to do that again, I would set up a separate for any app I wanted to sell. I would set up a separate AWS account, an entire account. And that would have gone much cleaner. But everything else was just transferring account.
nice. So with other people looking to sell, a SaaS startup, and after going through an acquisition yourself, what's maybe like a few tips you'd give some people?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I would say is one, don't be scared of it. Like I was, hadn't done it before, and I managed to get out just fine. But the other is like always be super upfront about things, especially with like things that might be bad about the app. you might think it's like a turnoff, but it's actually like the new buyer, they know that some things aren't going to be right, and that's why you're selling it. And so always be upfront about like why you're selling it, and also like so for example, in my app, I had a lot of free groups. It was a freemium model, and I hadn't actually turned on the code that would force them to upgrade. So I was like, you write this code and you get, like, I don't know, 10 groups or whatever were abusing the free plan basically.
Nice.
So if you kind of outline the things that you know are wrong with the app, then they can like figure out some quick wins as soon as they buy it. And so I think that helped in that case. Yeah, and my app was small, so the process wasn't that long, but it might be very long. So also also be prepared for that. I've heard of stories where it takes months and months, so it can go both ways, I guess.
Oh yeah, the larger the deal, the more complex due diligence gets, and also transferring assets because you just have more of them. But I love what you just said in terms of pointing out growth opportunities, because usually people buying assets at this size are looking to grow the asset. So I always say, bring your startup project, side, whatever you want to call it, and share everything you haven't done or what could be done. And it sounds like you have like, hey, you can just raise prices if you
Right.
click this button, but I haven't pressed it yet. And buyers love that because again, what you're doing is and just being honest about like, I've never raised prices, I've never tried this, I've never invested in I don't know, SEO, like social marketing, like there's all these things I haven't done, and that gives a buyer kind of an idea of the potential. Because if you've tried everything, and that could also be good in a sense where if you've tried everything, you might have a little bit of data on kind of what's working, what's not working. But yeah, just having like those growth opportunities on how you would continue growing the startup with a buyer, I think is a huge selling point, because you kind of just give them a roadmap. So that's awesome. What are you building now? I have a feeling you're a serial builder.
Yeah. Yeah, I always have stuff going on. Like I mentioned, I'm doing my master's program. I'm sort of transitioning from web development into AI. So I've been doing a lot of AI the last couple of years. So I'm doing a
Nice.
lot of that, like data science contests and stuff like that. But I do have another SaaS that's going. So it's a Slack app. It's like the intercom chat widget, but just that. So it's like super simple. I chose it for a few reasons. One, I know there's lots of competition out there. Like I wanted to do something that's already been done before several times to sort of get that experience. And since I'm doing all this stuff with my masters and everything, I wanted something in an app store so that hopefully that provides some of the marketing, because like I knew I wasn't going to be able to do full time like marketing pushes on it. So yeah, that just got approved actually recently in the Slack App Store, and I got my first paying customer. So one paying customer on my new thing.
Nice.
So yeah,
I always say, if you can get one, you can get 10, you can get 100, you can get 1,000. If you don't have a bunch of churn, that is.
right, right.
What is the name of the app?
It's called AcornChat, so acornchat.com. And
Acorn.
yeah,
Right on. I'll put that in the show notes. What I'm just curious, like, in terms of like building startups, are there any like books you'd recommend, like first time founders? Or love that cup, man. I see that.
oh yeah, yeah. So I actually didn't. This is for people listening. This is the I got MicroChoir cup. I didn't even plan that. This has been on my desk since I got it. So yeah,
Right
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Going back to my question, I'm just curious. It sounds like you're a phenomenal engineer and just a builder. And so, what sort of like, if you had to go on an island, I'm gonna just throw out a crazy question.
Sure.
You were on an island and you could only bring like 3 books and maybe like 2 podcasts. What would you bring?
Let's see. Podcasts. So the Indie
And,
Hackers podcast, I think, is
and
great. Oh,
you get a laptop too, so you can build a
I get a
startup.
lip. All right. Indie Hackers podcast, I think, is great. That's one of the ones I've been listening to for a long time. I have a bunch of books behind me. Let me look real quick, because I'm sure that so for some inspiration stuff, maybe like The War of Art. If people haven't heard that, that's not SaaS specific, but it's about like how when you want to do something and then you hit resistance, like how do you overcome that? It's a short little book. It's a great read. So maybe that. Let's see. I have a couple books by Arvid Kahl over there. He's a good as a solo developer. He developed something with 2 people, but He has great insights about what to do and what to build. Yeah, those are some of them.
Nice.
There is one oh April Dunford is great too. I have her book back here about marketing positioning. That would be
Uh,
that's what I need to
uh,
focus on now. Yeah.
so Arvid's book, Zero to Sold, and then April Dunford, obviously awesome.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep, yep. I've read. You want a few book recommendations?
Definitely, sure.
Because I also have books. I literally have those same headphones, and we have the same mic. I
Oh,
have
really?
those same Sony headphones,
That's
and
great. Yeah.
yeah, I like your setup.
Yeah.
For those listening, Chris has a baller setup with a nice mic and like a blue. He's making me look bad. One book that I've been really enjoying is called Play Bigger.
Mhm.
It's about kind of like category creation and basically brand marketing. And then Tuned In. It's a book just about how to like get real insights from customers. I'm an avid reader, so kind of nerd out on those. Well, that's kind of all I got. I guess final question. If you could meet one entrepreneur in the whole world, who would it be?
One entrepreneur. They're not great for the micro SaaS stuff, but I think Paul Graham has like a ton of unique insights about everything. So I really love his essays.
Oh, his quotes are just like just he has so many good one-liners. Like I think my personal favorite is I think his most favorite is do the things that don't scale.
Right.
So good answer there. Well, that's all I got. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this podcast and sharing your story. I'm super happy for you, and I'm glad the acquisition worked out. If people want to get a hold of you just to learn more about what you're working on next, where should they go?
Probably Twitter. I'm Chris Achard at Twitter, and yeah, I have DMs open. Happy to talk.
Right on. I'll put that in the show notes. So, Chris, pleasure chatting. Again, love the mic, headphones, book recommendations, and congrats again on the acquisition.
Thanks so much.
All right, cheers, man.
Bye.